Well, greetings, my friends, and welcome to the studios here for CrossPoint. We are making a commitment in 2018 to help us go further down the road of study and discipleship by providing resources, not just on the weekends, but throughout the week. We're going to start doing something called CrossPoint Extra to help you add to what we've been discussing and what's on our plate as far as our lessons and our learning and becoming more and more disciples of Jesus. And that's kind of where we start this time around, because we are in the midst of a brand new New Year's series that is all about making disciples. And we are talking about the fact that being a disciple is more than knowledge, and it's more than taking a class. That there are three aspects to discipleship. It's directional, it is personal, and it is relational. Now, we began the year talking about the fact that discipleship is directional. And what do we mean by that? It's absolutely essential to understand that to be a disciple of Christ simply means that you are facing Jesus and moving his direction. That means a disciple can be well down the road, having followed him for years, or it can be an individual who just yesterday changed his course and started following after Jesus. Just turning in Jesus' direction and moving his way. It's directional. It's also not about how far you've come down the road. You can be a disciple having taken monumental leaps, but also we need to celebrate the baby steps that we can move along. The reality is that a disciple is somebody who's transformed because they're following after Jesus. And it's not about where they end up. It's about the fact that they're on this path. And what does that mean? Well, as long as you draw breath, you're still a disciple. You are still learning and growing and moving in that vein. And because of that, we have developed this series in which we are looking at the directional, the relational, and the personal elements. And so far, like I said, we've only covered the directional. And I was doing my Bible study for my own devotional time, which is also getting ready for our next series in the Gospel of John. And I just had an example of the difference between a disciple and a church attender. The difference between a disciple and a Jesus appreciator. It's from John chapter 2, and they call it the first miracle of the Bible. It's the first sign. Obviously, though, because of the way Jesus' mother responds, it's not the first time he ever did a miracle, and I'll tell you why. In John chapter 2, starting in verse 1, it says, "On the third day there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee. Jesus was invited as well as his disciples." Now, his mother was there too. And they ran out of wine, and when they ran out of wine, Jesus' mother said to him and said to the servants around him that Jesus was going to take care of it. But Jesus' response was, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." She completely ignores him because she's a good Jewish mother and just tells the servants, "Do whatever he tells you," assuming that he's going to be obedient to mom. Now, they took some stone jars that were used for ceremonial washing, and Jesus told the servants to fill them up with water, and then he said, "Now pull some out and give it to the master of the feast," who's kind of the MC of the party. Now, we all know what happened here, that the water turned to wine. And there's this great teaching that comes out where the guy says, most people bring out the good stuff at first, and when everybody's ripped, then they bring out the cheap stuff. But you save the best stuff for last, because what Jesus converted from water to wine was the best he'd ever had. You know, all kinds of great teachings. There's obedience teachings on the servants just did what they were told to do. Can you imagine that moment when he said, just draw some of that water that you just put in the vat and take it to the master of the feast? I mean, that would sound ludicrous to them. I mean, all kinds of neat teachings in this, but you come down to the end here, and there is something amazing in verse 11. Let me read this to you. "This is the first of his signs Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him." And his disciples believed in him. You see, they're making a distinction there. There were a lot of people at the party. There were lots of people invited. There were all kinds of those who were celebrating, and everybody had some of the wine. But when they tasted the wine, it was his disciples who believed in him. Everybody else just got drunk on the experience. You see, this is the difference between somebody who's a church attender, a Jesus appreciator, somebody who comes and they experience the worship, or they enjoy the benevolence, or they even love the relationships, but they're not transformed in what they believe and who they are. A disciple will experience the same thing, the same worship, the same miracle, the same teaching, And instead of just enjoying it and getting drunk on the experience, instead of just making it something they say, well, I really like this, or this is what I appreciate, they will be geared up in a way that they are transformed, and it causes them more and more to believe in Jesus, to seek his name and his glory. And it's an internal error. Two people sitting on the same pew, two people in the same church, hearing the same thing, seeing the same thing, applauding the same way, and both shouting hallelujah. But one's getting drunk on the experience, and one is faster and deeper, falling more in love with Jesus and believes in him more and more. You see, that's why two people can look at the same painting, listen to the same song, watch the same movie, and get two completely different responses. It's because of what's going on inside of them. So as we continue to pursue what it means to be a disciple, made different to make a difference, I want to challenge you that you don't get drunk on the experience. You don't spend so much time seeking a worship style that you enjoy, a pastor that makes sense to you, a ministry that's uber friendly to you. Those are all really important things. But the most important thing is that when you have that encounter, does it lead you closer, further, deeper, and stronger into a relationship with Jesus? And do you begin to believe in him more, trust in him more, and walk in him more? This is the real test of what it is to be a disciple. When we see Jesus, when we hear from Jesus, when we worship Jesus, we begin to believe in him even more. Many blessings to you. Hope you have a great experience. For those of you who are listening, those of you who are watching, I am thankful that you're a part of this. And if you haven't found a Bible-based church where you can be taught the word, but not only find the knowledge, find a place to walk it out, to live it out with others, that you can have a faith that is directional, it is relational, and it is personal, then I'd invite you to become a part of our faith community. For everyone else, we want you to live long and strong in the places where God has you planted, and may we all grow up in the image of him. God bless you, seeking more of him and less of me. Have a great week. You were made different to make a difference. God bless you. Bye-bye.